It's Friday on Foster Life, and I'm ready for the weekend. We've been busy with the show, but today we got a great show for you. We're talking about medication and consequences. So many times when we take these bundles of joy into our home, we want to medicate for behaviors. And our rule of thumb here at our home is we medicate for mental illness, but we don't medicate behaviors. And there's a lot of positive consequences that you can do with your foster kids, adoptive kids, and your bio kids that can help you get through those times of high behaviors. But also, there's a lot of things that we need to know about medications that are out there, because medication can be so dangerous. And a lot of times when we bring these kids into our home, we don't know a lot about the medications that come with them. I'll give you a prime example. We took a kid in a while back, and he was on a lot of different medications, and it kind of freaked me out because we would go to pick up his medications at the pharmacy, and they would have to call the state first to make sure that it was okay to give all of these medications to this child. And as a foster parent, that seems like a huge responsibility. Or when you go to the psychiatrist to get the medications renewed, and the psychiatrist says, now be really careful with this prescription because this has a high street value on the street, meaning that if you sell this drug, you can get a lot of money for it, so you want to make sure you know where it's at all the time because people want to steal that medication. That seems like a huge responsibility to take on. So hopefully today we're going to get some good information about medications out there, what's safe, what's not safe, some things that we can do in our home to make that risk a little bit lower, but also get some ideas on things that we can do for consequences as well to help with behaviors and medicate mental illness. We'll be back right after these messages right here on Foster Life.
Join our Foster Christmas Challenge. It's easy.
Share this video to your Facebook page and go shopping for kids 0 to 19 years old.
Then take a picture or a short video and post it on the Foster TV fan page. And then drop it off at a local social services or a DFS office.
I'm just here because I'm cute.
That's it. Don't forget to challenge your friends.
Merry
Christmas!
We're single.
Not me.
Not me either.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking medication consequences right here on Foster Life today. We have a special guest with us, and I'm really glad to have her on our team. Her name is Courtney Lavelle, and she has a master's degree in
forensic psychology,
and she has her bachelor's degree in social work. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so let's start with the medication first, because I know a lot of times when we get these kids in, as you know, we know very little about their past and what their medical and everything that's going on. And also, I think because they just came into our home, you don't know if it's because of the change or what. So what kinds of things should we be looking for to know that we need to seek help and that we possibly need to have some type of medication?
Okay, so if we're talking about behaviors, first of all, a lot of behaviors are trauma and loss driven.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're seeing behaviors that are physical, acting out, such as hitting other people or hurting themselves, especially if they hurt themselves, you need to seek immediate physical physician help.
So if they're hurting themselves or whatever, or others, they need to seek immediate help. Now, when you do that for our newer foster parents, do we contact the social worker first and then go to the physician, or go to the physician and then update the social worker? Because I think there's a little bit of confusion as to what decisions we make right out of the gate.
Right, and that can be hard. The first thing to remember is that if the child is in immediate danger, if it's something that, if it was your own child in your own home that you would immediately call a physician for, then do that first and notify the caseworker or the on-call worker. If it's something that you might need a referral or you just want to see what the mental health looks like, then you can call the caseworker and they'll give you a referral.
Okay. So there's all types of things out there. There's ADHD, there's RAD, there's tons of different things that diagnosis out there. Depression, anxiety. I mean, the list goes on. And like me, my background is not in childcare at all. I mean, I don't have any type of education like you do. My education is in a totally different field. So what types of things should I be looking for that's going to be helpful for the doctor to diagnose what's really going on? Does he have depression or she have ADHD? You know, what types of things should we be looking for?
This is where your kiddo comes in really handy.
Mm-hmm.
You want the kiddo to have as much input in this decision as you do.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to talk about risky behaviors. Are they being unsafe? Do they ride their bicycle in the middle of the street deliberately in front of cars? Do they deliberately turn on the stove and hurt themselves? Those are some examples I've seen.
Okay.
You want to talk about, can we sit still for long periods of time at home but not at school? If we can't do either, if we can't sit still at all, then maybe we're looking at ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these kids will be diagnosed with adjustment disorder, which is just literally just having issues transitioning from one thing to the next. So I can't transition into your home because maybe your rules are just different than at home.
Right.
Like, those are the things that a lot of kids are medicated for these days.
Okay, great. So on the flip side, a kid comes and they have tons of medication, and they're medicated and that type of thing. What are the things that you're going to look for to see if they're over medicated, or even that it's a dangerous type of thing for them, that they're in some type of danger? Because I'm not sure if I got a new kid in, if I would really know if they were in danger or over medicated or just sad and depressed because they came into care. So what types of things are we going to look for being over medicated?
So the first thing you'll notice is that children tend to be sleepier, more zombie-like. They easily comply. Kids are naturally going to have a little bit of fight. They're going to want to push boundaries. They're going to want to have a little say in their lives.
Right.
If they're not doing that, they are probably being over-medicated. If you look at the bottle and they're taking 300 milligrams of Strattera and they're 8 years old, we have a problem. They're being over-medicated. If they're 5 years old and they're on Xanax, we have a problem. You're taking too much medication. Other things you might notice is that they might sweat more, they might have rapid weight gain, they might have zero interest in things that most kids love, like watching TV or playing video games, playing board games, some of those typical things that you would normally expect a child to do. And those change a little bit with age. You know, a 15-year-old's going to be more interested in video games than a 5-year-old and things like that.
Okay, so we get a new child in. We go to our psychiatrist or our family doctor or our professional, and they say, Rob, this child's over medicated, and we need to make some changes because this is kind of dangerous. So at that point, do we just go ahead and do what the physician recommends, or do we need to get with the social worker first, run it by them, and then kind of go with that because it deals with their mental health and that type of thing?
So that's a really great question. The most important thing is, before you have that appointment, tell your caseworker. Let them know, especially if you have that concern that your kiddo's being over-medicated.
Okay.
Because your social worker might want to come to that visit, might want to come to that appointment and say
That's a good idea.
that they're not comfortable with their child being on this much medication. If you can't get them there, or if this is a more emergent need, or you have high turnover in caseworkers for this kid, one of the things you can do is start with that program that the doctor's doing. Make sure you get as much information. What's this going to do to my kid's weight, to his lifestyle? What do I need to look for in case he's having a bad reaction? Get as much information on those medications as you can. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to push the doctor
Yeah.
for answers.
And that's a really good point. We had a child that came to us, and he was on a medication that actually caused what they call party tics. And so he would do this, and we would say, hey, why are you doing that? And he didn't even realize that he was doing it, but it was the medication that was causing these party tics like this. And you know that when we got with the psychiatrist and actually talked to the psychiatrist about these party tics, she took him off the medication, and it took a year for those party tics to go away. So I think you're exactly right. We need to ask questions to our doctors and make sure that we know what all the side effects and things are. When we come back, we're going to explore more on the medication side and talk about some side effects and some good meds and some not so good meds. And then we're going to talk about some changes as far as medication in the foster community, right here on Foster Life. We'll be right back.
Hey, it's Mama T with Mama T's Cooking Big, and I want you to join Foster TV's Christmas Challenge.
Today we're exploring medication consequences. Yeah, we're talking about drugs. And we have a great guest with us, Courtney Lavelle. And I'm going to let you in on a little tip. She's probably going to not like this. But even with my other kids, I always run medications by her because she knows a lot about medications. And I think that she's a really good resource. And I encourage you, if you're a foster parent, try to find a resource like that. I know a lot of you have friends that are nurses and doctors and psychiatrists and counselors, and that's a good person to have on your team. So what I want to talk about next is medications, because a lot of times, they'll say, oh, I really think that we need to drop this med and do this med and do that, and I don't know anything about them, and I ask questions, but side effects, a lot of them are the same. Well, it could cause stomach ache and headache and throwing up. So what are some medicines that you recommend to maybe stay away from? And then maybe what are some medicines that are more safe that you feel more comfortable with?
So the medications I would stay away from are things like Depakote, Seroquel, Xanax. Those medications are not created for children. Mm-hmm. They're not created for people under 18.
Right.
And in reality, they're not going to do their job properly because a child's brain is not developed to the point where it can actually handle the chemicals that those medications are putting in and messing with. Mm-hmm. Things you can use are like Lexapro is usually pretty good for depression, anxiety, mm-hmm. even suicidal ideation can be helped with Lexapro.
Right.
If you have an ADHD kid or an adjustment disorder kid, Strattera is a really good medication for those, or Zyprexa can sometimes be helpful. You have to watch the dosages. Sometimes they like to put kids on a lot of medication and then wean them off slowly. I would actually suggest doing it the other way. Mm-hmm. Start really slow and just see how it helps. Start at the lowest dose possible.
Right.
And work your way up if it's needed. A lot of times, if a kid comes to your house on 300 milligrams of Seroquel, there's no need for that. 10 milligrams might do the trick if that's absolutely necessary. But again, push back, talk to the doctor, really think about those side effects, and really take the child's actions and wants into account as well.
Right. And I think another thing that is good advice is always make sure that the doctor knows exactly what they're on right now, because sometimes our doctors will kind of look at the list and they'll kind of skim it and they'll start adding things, but really make sure that ask them, just flat ask them, how is this going to interact with the other medicines that they're on? And that way it kind of encourages them to look again to see what they're on and then make those decisions together so that we're not mixing things that shouldn't be mixed with each other. Now, I hear a lot on the radio and TV about these places now where they can I don't know if it's like your DNA or your blood chemical or whatever, and they check to see what medicines would work well. Is that something that really works, or is that a true thing, or is that kind of hoaxy?
No, so it's called genocytes testing.
Okay.
And it's really beneficial. Really, Medicaid will pay for it, and if you have a kid who's in foster care, they're on Medicaid, go and get it done. The doctor can do it. It's not going to cost you a dime. It's not going to cost the state a dime to do. But it literally will give you no interactions, basic interactions, severe interactions on one sheet. And it will tell you what medications are going to be best for this child,
right?
Which ones are going to be okay, but might not work as effectively with their body chemistry and their genes and their DNA, and then the ones to absolutely stay away from. So you might even see things on there that your kid is on, and you're going to want to talk to your doctor and say, look, he's like, obviously this has got a reaction. Let's work with something on the lower end.
Okay, good. So for our adoptive parents or long-term foster care parents, so you go to the doctor, they put them on these medications. So is that kind of they have to just be on this forever? Or is there a time that some of these medications can be backed off? What are we really looking at as parents when our kids are on medication?
That is a great question for a doctor. That's always the first question I ask when somebody calls me and says, we're going to put so-and-so on Seroquel. And I want to say, how long does he need to be on that? Like, is this an immediate need, or is this going to be an addictive thing where he's going to have to go up in dosages every year? Some of those medications can really mess with you, can lead into harder drug usage when they're older teenagers, or can be things that they can never be weaned off of because they can't function without them because it's altered their brain chemistry so much. So it's really important to ask that question of the doctor and say, how long will he need to be on this?
Right.
And then take steps to prevent that. So if he says, this is likely going to be 5, 10, 15 years of medication treatment, what can we do instead? Is there an activity I can do? If my kid needs to be on Strattera because he can't sit still at school, maybe in the morning I need to do yoga, or we need to go running, or we need to do something physical to get some of that energy out so he can pay attention in school.
Right.
There's lots of opportunities to talk about to your doctor about this stuff.
Right.
But we have to do it.
Right.
And it's something that we've been kind of ingrained not to do. Like, you don't question the doctor.
Right.
The doctor knows what he's doing. He went to school longer than I did. But don't be afraid to ask the doctor. Don't be afraid to let your child ask the doctor what this is going to do to them.
That's all good stuff. Also, another thing that you might want to talk to your doctor about is as you're coming up on Christmas break, especially we're getting ready to do that coming up, and spring break and the different times of year vacations, we also take medical or medicine vacations, and it's very healthy for your child. And so we talk to our doctor, and our doctor always encourages us, if we're going to be really active during Christmas break and we're going to be doing a lot of stuff and we're going to be going all the time, sometimes it's safe for us to do that. But you want to check with the doctor, and the main things that you always want to check is which medications, because some medications are not healthy just to stop. And then you want to see, so which medications are we going to take a vacation from? And then once we do that medicine vacation, how do you want me to put it back into the string of things? And I think that that's always a good thing to ask. And we found that the medication vacations are really good, and we just kind of do it with the school year, and we work with our doctor on that, and that's a good thing to do. When we come back, we're going to talk about how the laws are changing in foster care and some of the things that you need to know about medicine right after this on Foster Life. medication and consequences. But before we go on some more and talk about some of the rules that are changing, we are doing the Foster Christmas Challenge here on Foster TV, and my family is behind it 100%. Every time I film a show, I challenge 3 people to do the Foster Christmas Challenge. It's really simple. If you want to get involved, just go to our Foster TV Facebook page, and there's a short video there that shows you how your family can get involved. Today, I am going to challenge 3 people. And the 3 people that I am going to challenge is Kathy Bailey of Bailey and the Boys in Nashville, Tennessee. Kathy, I need you to get some Foster presents and take them to DFS Social Services and get those for your community. I also want to challenge McCole Smith, my cousin in Colorado. McCole, I need you to go get some Foster gifts, either 1, 2, a lot. Take it to DFS or Social Services so those can get to those kids. And the last person I'm going to challenge today here on Foster TV is a man by the name of Kid Rock. I need you to do us a favor and get us some Foster gifts. Come on, I know you can do it. You got lots of money. You're the all-American badass. All right, so getting back to our show today, we're talking about medication. And I know that in our state, there has been a lot of changes to the policies and things, but we're trying to get that to go nationwide. And these are really good guidelines to follow. So let's talk to Courtney. Courtney, what are some of the changes that have come in our state and some of the recommendations that they're making nationally?
So in our state specifically,
Right.
A lot of it revolves around informed consent and asking those questions and pushing the doctor, like I said over and over again.
Right.
But also in seeking out alternatives to medication before that happens. So behavioral intervention, therapy, play therapy, exercise, anything you can think of that can help a child be successful in your home to avoid disruption, which only makes things worse, before you resort to medication.
Right.
And the other thing is that they really want to get away from using psychotropics on children. Psychotropics alter the chemicals of your brain to increase the mood and behavior of a child, but they're not good for children. And it's something that we here in our state don't want to see happen anymore.
Right.
So we're really trying to move away from it unless it's absolutely necessary.
What's an example of a psychotropic, do you know?
You probably have them in your cabinet.
Uh-huh.
So we're talking Xanax, Seroquel, Depakote, Ativan, Lexapro,
Oh.
anything that you would use for depression, anxiety, oppositional defiance disorder, reactive attachment disorder, anything that would be qualified to increase the positive chemicals and decrease bad behavior is going to be considered a psychotropic medication.
Okay, so what are some of the other changes that have come our way?
So we're talking about the parent engagement. One of the things is that we really want foster parents and caseworkers to reach out to bio parents.
Right.
And say, these are still your children right now. What do you want to happen?
Okay.
What do you feel is best? What have you done in the past to help with this kind of behavior?
Right.
Or is this all new? They want us to really get the children on board. You know, even an 8-year-old can say, I don't like the way this makes me feel. I don't want to be on this anymore.
Right.
They should be able to identify their medications, what it's for, and how much they're taking every time they do it.
Right.
They need to know as much as we need to know what's going in their body.
Cool. So those are some good things. Anything else that's coming down the pike, or does that kind of wrap it up?
That kind of sums it up. It's just ask questions and know what you're putting in your kid's body.
You know, an interesting thing is that sometimes as foster parents, we forget that the bio parents, they are the parents. And we take on this responsibility as foster parents to work as a part of this team. And how involved you want to be is really up to you. But I choose to be really involved. And what that has done is every kid, so when it's all said and done, I'll have adopted 10 kids from the system. But every one of those, except for 2 children, I have a relationship with the bio parents. Some type of relationship. And most of my kids, I talk with the bio parents probably a few times a month. And I choose to do that. And what that does is it just kind of opens up good, healthy relationships, but it also helps me in communicating with my kids kind of what's going on and that type of thing, because most of my kids, except for my babies, they know their parents, and so it's always good to kind of be able to keep them informed and stuff in a healthy manner. But we are called to work as a team, and I think that that's a really good idea, that if we're making changes or if we're putting kids on medication and these kids are going to be reunifying with their parents, they really should be a part of that decision.
Not only that, but I think that's really important to realize that if they do reunify and they do go home, how likely is it that the parents are going to be able to keep up with giving them that medication? So
Right.
anything we can do to reduce the likelihood of just dropping medications and causing more problems
Right.
is always better.
Right. And take those bio parents with you to those doctor's appointments.
Absolutely.
Because those questions that you're asking the psychiatrist or the family doctor or the specialist, you're just training those bio parents to learn to ask those questions in the future. And so that's always healthy to take them with and let them be a part of that appointment. When we come back after this, we're going to talk about the flip side. Sometimes it's not mental illness that's the problem. Sometimes it's just behaviors. And there's a lot of things that we can do as foster parents that are positive consequences and ways to muddle through those behaviors right after.
Join our Foster Christmas Challenge. It's easy.
Share this video to your Facebook page and go shopping for kids 0 to 19 years old.
Then take a picture or a short video and post it on the Foster TV fan page. And then drop it off at a local social services or a DFS office.
I'm just here because I'm cute.
That's it. Don't forget to challenge your friends.
Merry
Christmas!
We're single.
Not me.
Not me either.
Welcome back to Foster Life. We are talking about medication and we're talking about consequences. And consequences can be such an important thing because when you go through your foster training, they give you all the things that you can't do. And sometimes we get these little treasures in our home and they have been brainwashed in what you can't do. And they tell you, what are you gonna do about it? You can't touch me. Well, you can't touch them, but you can use consequences and you can use them in your favor. And let me tell you, I have boys with elevated behaviors and needs in my home, and consequences work. So, busting the wall. Courtney, what do you do?
Oh, I'm a great proponent of natural, logical consequence. If you put a hole in my wall, I'm gonna give you spackle and a scraper, and you're gonna fix it. You're gonna learn how to fix a wall today.
That sounds good. That's a good way to do that. And sometimes for our older kids, if they break something of mine, they're gonna pay for it.
Yep.
Especially if they have a job and they're working at the local McDonald's and they break my whatever because they're ticked off.
Get me a new one.
Yeah, they're gonna get me a new one and they're gonna pay for that. Some of the consequences that we use. So one thing when we're talking about consequences is I think there's a difference between a consequence and abuse. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Because, sometimes we use a lot of different things as consequences, but I think the amount of time that you do it, how often you use that consequence can cross a line. And if you're doing a consequence, say a timeout, and you have a kid in timeout for 24 hours and they're sitting in the corner, that's abuse. No way you look at it. So when you're doing consequences, you got to say, what's a reasonable amount of time that's healthy for the child and healthy for me? And sometimes I use consequences as a break for me. because I need a break.
Right.
And so a lot of times what I choose as a consequence is what we're going to do. So Courtney and I were talking after the break, and she's going to tell you about a little consequence thing that I like to use. It's a great tool in the house, and it's called a consequence jar. So tell me a little bit about a consequence jar. How does that work?
It's really similar to a chore jar, You write a bunch of consequences on a stick or a piece of paper, and these things might be you have to do the dishes when that's not a normal chore that they might do, or
Right.
you have to unload the dishwasher, sweep the floor, maybe you have to spend 2 hours of your time in your bedroom. You can do whatever you want in there, but you have to be
Right.
in your room. You don't get to go out for pizza on Friday night. It could be anything that your kiddo really enjoys doing or really dislikes doing.
Right.
And when they do something wrong, if it's something that's really dangerous, you might say, hey, you know what? That's 3 consequences. You have to go pick out 3 consequences. Or maybe they just shoved their little brother. Well, that's 2 consequences. They're talking back. They get 1 consequence. They go out, pull it out. They do what they got to do, and it's over. It's done.
Right. And then it's a whole brand new board. It's a clean
clean
slate, and it's done. But the key is that they're grounded to their room until the consequence or consequences are done. But they know after I get these done, I'm starting over, and I'm done. And because when we prolong those consequences, that's not healthy either. You're grounded for 3 weeks. Or a lot of times what parents will do is they'll say, you're grounded for 3 days. And then they'll talk back or something, and they'll say, okay, now it's a week. And then they'll say, now it's 2 weeks. Well, in 2 weeks, most of our kids, by the time they get done with that 2-week sentence, they don't even know what they were
They don't even remember what it was for.
what they were doing and what it was for. And so that doesn't seem to always be really effective with our kids. So let's kind of go through a list of some healthy consequences. If you have those kids with ADD, ADHD, really hyper kids, one thing that I like to do is if you have a backyard and it's fenced, is I'll do so many laps in the backyard. So it's up and back, up and back. And the reason why we do that is a lot of times we see with our kids that are real hyper, they'll come in and they're a lot more relaxed. They just needed to blow off some energy. So we use sometimes exercise or a punching bag or something like that to kind of do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's totally appropriate. As long as it's not overly exerting them or
Right.
making them feel like they're working. I wouldn't suggest things like extensive wall sits or anything where they have to do something extremely strenuous. We're talking simple exercise, some jumping jacks. Things
Right.
to burn off that energy so that they can work through whatever's going on in their mind.
Right. Again, something that is feasible, because if it goes too long, it's abusive. So we're talking, when I'm talking laps, we're talking 10 laps or 10, back and forth in the backyard, or 20. Something that's just going to take a little bit, burn off some time. The other thing that we're going to talk about is sometimes we use a food consequence, and you talked about that, maybe not going out to pizza or doing something like that. But a food consequence, you have to be really careful.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't know what this child's history is, their
Right.
background is. You don't know what consequences their parents use.
Right.
Food might be a really big trigger. They might have been deprived of it. They might have been forced to eat more of it than they can inhale or take
Right.
physically. And it can really trigger bad behavior or even worse, outbursts.
Right.
Listen up, it's Mama T here. Guess what? Look for Mama T's Cooking Big only on Foster TV, coming to you in January 9th of 2019. Ciao, baby.
Today has been an awesome day on Foster Life. It's not only Friday, and we have the weekend coming up, but I have learned so much about medication and consequences. And thank you so much to Courtney Lavelle for being here. I think you're going to see her a lot more in the future. I think she has a lot to offer, and we can have some really good conversations. And when I learn something, I think that's always cool, because I'm always open to learning and exploring new ideas, and I learned a lot today. Coming up next week, we got some great shows. On Monday, we're gonna be doing some crafts with our host of Mama T's Cooking Big. She's gonna be on my show, and she's gonna show us some fun crafts that we can do at Thanksgiving and Christmas with our kids, and that's gonna be exciting. Then she's coming back to the show on Wednesday, and she's gonna be showing us some easy, healthy, nutritious snacks that we can do through the holidays that are fun for the kids, and they can help you make them, but they're also kind of festive and holiday-ish and that type of thing. And then on Friday on the show, we are going to be talking about, you got it, yes we are, how to become a foster parent. And so many of you want to become foster parents, or you're watching because you think that this is something that you might do, and we're going to kind of walk you through the steps on how you can become a foster parent. Thanks for joining us today. We are so glad that you were with us. I hope you learned something. Don't forget to do the Foster Christmas Challenge. We are behind 439,000 kids in care, giving them a Christmas that they deserve, right here on Foster TV. Till next time, have a good weekend. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.